What's going on, guys? Stevie here with Lucky Crit, and today we're going to be breaking down and analyzing the brand new Fire Emblem Three Houses trailer. This is Fire Emblem 16. This is the game that we've been talking about for over a year at this point, finally revealed to us here as a part of Nintendo's E3 presentation this year, and it is due out for release in next spring, early 2019, which is awesome. So let's get on into it. So to start things off, thanks to the press kit, we have this info about the game. The game takes place in the land of Fodlan, where the Church of Syros exercises great power over the land and its people. As the main character, the player must not only fight on the battlefield, but can also move the character freely and interact with other characters to build relationships and gather information at some parts. This turn-based tactical RPG will put new strategic twists on battling, with formations of troops supporting individual units on the battlefield. So it seems like they might be going for the whole church is evil kind of shtick with this game, and it really does seem like the main character is going to be another avatar character like Robin and Corrin, but we'll get to that a little later in the video. The Japanese name for the game is Fire Emblem Fukasetsu Getsu, and if the kanjis are flipped over, it can be read as Fire Emblem 4 Seasons, these seasons being snow, moon, wind, and flower. And thanks to Cantopia, these seasons and the kanji itself refer to 4 colors, 3 of which are matched by our little main character trio here, which consists of Edelgard, Dimitri, and Claude. We'll get into them a little bit later as well, but they represent basically red, blue, and yellow. The next question will be whether or not Byleth, who appears to be the main character type of avatar character that we're talking about, whether or not he's going to be the 4th color, which will be green for wind, but that will remain to be seen. So these characters might represent the winds of summer, the flowers of spring, snows of winter, and the moon of autumn, and this whole theme has a lot of significance in Japan, and also some romantic allusions. So that really could have a lot to do with the story, and that honestly kind of sounds like the 3 houses from Dynasty Warriors. Even the colors are very, very similar, although there wasn't really a 4th house in Dynasty Warriors. But all of this is really, really interesting because we just had Fire Emblem Warriors, which was, you know, the clash of Dynasty Warriors and Fire Emblem together, and so now it's almost like we're kind of getting a Dynasty Warriors type of Fire Emblem. Not mechanic-wise, obviously, but storyline-wise. That seems to be like what we're going with here, which is interesting. So, beginning the trailer here, as many fans have been pointing out, the world map is very reminiscent of Alibe from Fire Emblem 7, and even Tellius a little bit from Fire Emblem 9 and 10. The names of all the continents are definitely readable, but it's quite challenging because of the Old English-esque font here. There's also sub-areas and tinier regions here on the map. I won't go through all of them here, but the big 3 areas look to be Adrastia, the Red Kingdom in the south, whose crest is some sort of a bird, Fergus, the Blue Kingdom in the north, whose crest almost looks like a griffin rider, some sort of a knight on a winged creature, definitely not a Pegasus though. And then there's the green Leicester in the east, whose crest is a moon and what looks to be like several knights' helmets. Like already right off the bat, this is starting to look like Fire Emblem meets Game of Thrones as well, which I find interesting. And as you could probably tell, these colors match up perfectly with our main characters, so without even knowing their names, it's pretty clear where they're from. But the full names were actually revealed in an accompanying article from Nintendo, these being Edelgard von Hrezelbeg, which, if we look a little closer on the map, is located in Adrastia and is marked by a leaf-shaped emblem. Then there's Dimitri Alexander Bladad. Bladad is in Fergus, and it has a diamond-shaped emblem, so there's the blue there. And Claude von Regan is obviously from Regan, which we can see is a part of Leicester and has a moon emblem as well. My assumption is that these 3 characters are probably some pretty important characters from these 3 nations. They seem like the sort of protagonist trio that we've got here. There's also a rather distinct mountain range running right through the center of the continent, which I find interesting, and may be a big factor in a lot of the battles. As I'd imagine, we're going to be having some warring countries here, of course. I mean, without that, what is Fire Emblem even? But also there's a landmark in the center that seems to be called Barg Mac, so that could be, you know, a pivotal point throughout the story of the game, maybe taking over that place, or who knows what's going to happen there. Thanks to Serenes Forest, I also found out that Nintendo's Topics site revealed a wider version of the map, with a bunch of grayed out territories like Bridget in the southwest, Morpheus in the southeast, and so on. So I really hope that we'll get to explore all of these continents and countries, and that gets me really excited. They mentioned the goddess that watches over Fodlan, who's surrounded by the sky dragons, so this could be a nod to Naga, or perhaps the Naga of this time period, depending on which timeline or world this is taking place in. Fodlan's Japanese name is a reference to the Irish goddess Fodla, so perhaps we're going in that direction as far as references and name drops go with a lot of the characters and mythology behind the game. The trailer description on YouTube also reads, "Long ago, the divine Syros received a revelation from the goddess, a gift to help guide the lost. Now the goddess watches over Fodlan from her kingdom above as the mother of all life, the arbiter of every soul." Kind of sounds a little bit like Milla here, and I find the references to souls very interesting. I hope that permadeath and characters dying might have some sort of interesting new aspects in this game. Perhaps the goddess will control or possess their souls and use them against the player, who knows. There's also a robed figure here holding a wavy serpent-like sword, which could be the divine Cyros. In the Japanese version, they call Cyros a holy woman, so perhaps this character went on to form or establish this religion that seems to be, a pretty big deal in this continent. It cuts back and forth here between the goddess and this woman, whose dragon wing headdress leads me to believe that this woman could be carrying out the will of the goddess. Maybe she's the new divine Cyros, the new leader of this sort of church organization. She could potentially be the villain of the game. What's interesting, though, is that her hair color is very reminiscent of Divine Dragon characters in the Fire Emblem series, like Tiki and Milla, so it would be interesting if they'd put a different spin on it and made her the bad guy in this game. Knowing Fire Emblem, the gift of the goddess could certainly be a falchion or a similar kind of divine weapon, so I'm definitely anticipating that, and they also are holding up a sword in this art here, so definitely a possibility. Now we can finally see the in-game battle map, and you'll see the map here is very reminiscent of Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn, which was the last time that Fire Emblem was on a home console, and the terrain types are definitely making a comeback, with grassland being the default terrain here, alongside some bushes units can stand in, which I'm assuming are going to give, a bit of a terrain defense bonus. This character is Edelgard von Helsbeg, and seems to be the main character of the game, which makes me very happy because we finally ditched the blue-haired Lord shtick, at least for now. Of course, not including this guy, but, if he's the avatar character, then I can give that one a pass, because you'll probably be able to change his hair color. She's got a steel axe equipped, and it's nice to see the little classic sprite in the corner was brought back here in some form, considering we're jumping back to polygonal models on the map. And even though your characters do have small armies or groups of generic soldiers with them in battle now, on the map it still looks like classic Fire Emblem. We can see some lines coming from the enemies to Edelgard here, which could indicate that that's who they're most likely to target if if this is some kind of maybe a preview as to how the AI is going to react, or maybe it's because she's the closest unit. Perhaps a warning or a way of knowing what sort of danger the character you've selected will be in if you move around the map, if they're kind of within the enemy range. It also seems that characters might have inherent magical abilities because it's separate from the attack menu, and she doesn't have any tomes on her. So either she's got some personal magic skills, or perhaps tomes won't even be in the game at all. Maybe we're seeing another Echoes approach here. It could even, cost HP again, but we'll have to see what happens with this later. Combat arts look to me like some of the arts that we got for unlocking weapon skills in Fire Emblem Echoes, which now may not be weapon skills anymore, but will probably feature some skills and other attack effects, kind of like Double Lion, Hit and Run, Curved Shot, a lot of the ones that we did see in Echoes. So it seems that whole system is coming back as well. So you can choose between your standard attack, or, slightly refined attacks that have different effects. Then we've got Formation, which I'm assuming is for the player to change the formation of the character and their small group of soldiers, but we'll get into that more later as well. In the battle flyout windows here, we can see Attack, Hit, Crit, AS, which must be Attack Speed, Avoid, and then END, RSL, and Range. END and RSL had me scratching my head here for a moment, but thanks to Serenes Forest taking a look at the Japanese version of the trailer, it turns out that they are Endurance and Resilience, which are probably just newly renamed Defense and Resistance, so it looks like we're getting a bit of a stat name change here. So a lot of this is back, as it should be, and we can see some iron and steel weapons here as well. It looks like Edelgard can apparently use both swords and axes, which is a nice change, and her class is Aristocrat. Looking at her weapons, we can see that durability is also definitely making a comeback after being absent in recent entries like Echoes and Fates, which is certainly cool, and the person who Edelgard is attacking is Mercedes. So could be a named enemy, could be a boss, but there's no way to tell. It does seem like they're kind of moving towards this because we'll see another later. But perhaps there might be more named enemy characters that you're fighting. Maybe that adds to the whole, darkness of the game because you're actually, defeating or potentially, killing real characters, people with names instead of just generic enemies. The top left corner here looks like the Vantage symbol from Fire Emblem Heroes, so I wonder if personal skills are making a comeback as well. If so, then Edelgard has Vantage. There's also no obvious weapon triangle advantage iconography here, since Edelgard is using an axe against Mercedes' sword, and thus should be at a disadvantage, unless it's just present in the calculations, as we can see that Mercedes has better hit. The rest of the menu here looks like pretty standard fare, but it is interesting that they made it kind of slanted and 3D looking though. One thing that I do want to point out is that Mercedes has a generic enemy sprite as her character model, instead of one matching her portrait, which is definitely lame if they're going in this direction with the models. I hope that there are custom enemy models, and that especially if a character is getting a name and a portrait, that the model matches them. The soldiers that are a part of your main character's group can be seen fighting the enemy soldiers in the background here, which is a really cool effect. It really does make it look like an actual army is fighting a battle, instead of your 13 characters running across a map destroying, entire nations. A lot of fans are comparing this group mechanic to Advance Wars, where you controlled one unit on the main map screen, but that was actually a small battalion of those units in battle. So that's pretty cool, and it's nice to see, kind of a throwback to Advance Wars. Personally, it also kind of reminds me of Suikoden, which I don't know too much about, so I may be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure that Suikoden had a similar kind of a war system that was kind of along this vein, so that's interesting. And it also reminds me of one of my old school favorites for the Game Boy Advance, Yggdraunion, but we'll talk about that in another video someday. We can see Dimitri here attacking with his lance, and the enemy who's wielding a sword has terrible hit compared to his 100%, so perhaps the weapon triangle is indeed here. And this is Claude, the third character here, who wields a bow, so that's cool. I'm really glad that they're giving some variation to the main character's weapons, at least. In this part, we can see here that Pegasus Knights, Cavaliers, and even Vake-styled fighters are going to be making a return, so hopefully some similar classes will still remain. There's definitely a lot going on here. It looks like you can get a super zoomed-in view of the enemy's characters and their armies alongside your own. There's a nice cutout for all your main units, so you can kind of tell whose battalion is whose, and the minimap on the right showcases all of the weapon types in the area around you, which is nice. And since you're so far zoomed in, it also does function as your movement range too. The voiceover here mentions crests, which are tokens of the goddess's power, and seems like they'll be a big factor in this game, whether it'll be reclaiming them, destroying them, or maybe stopping those who seek them. Maintaining order sounds like they're used to control people, or at least influence them. Earlier on in the trailer, in the portrait of the goddess, the ring around the artwork featured various crests, which now looking back, they do seem to line up to ones that we've seen so far of the nations on the world map. So perhaps each nation has a special crest with divine power, but that will also remain to be seen. As we can see here, the blue-haired protagonist, who seems to be the avatar character, is named Byleth. On his flyout menu here, we can see a flame icon, which really looks like the skill Wrath, so skills are definitely making a comeback. This is one of the most interesting and new aspects here. It's very reminiscent of some of the newer Tales games like Zestiria. It looks like we'll have full city exploration akin to the Tales games, but hopefully better though, as honestly those have been really linear for a long time. But it looks like they're going a step further from Echoes, where you had kind of explorable dungeons and sort of a first-person point-and-click adventure type of navigation within cities. So we're going a step further to full exploration here, and I hope that it's kind of really interesting. I hope that it's not just super limited and super linear. We've got Byleth running around here, who, as a character, looks like he's sort of a mix of an edgy Alm and Ephraim, I'd say. He seems to be some kind of a knight. There's a crest on his chest and a dagger at his waist. This scene here really seems to pinpoint that Byleth will be a silent protagonist, or at the very least, the player character's avatar, and maybe they don't speak while running around the castle, because he doesn't do any voiceover speeches in the trailer, and in this scene, we can see that the player is selecting the option of what Edelgard should train. Thanks to a separate article from Nintendo's Japanese website, we can see that in the official character artwork for Edelgard, Dimitri, and Claude, their outfits are all very similar, even though they're all from different nations, so perhaps there's some sort of alliance or training school happening, and maybe Byleth, the player character, could be the teacher to all these characters, considering Edelgard was asking what to focus on in this scene, so maybe the player plays some kind of a teacher role to all these characters. My assumption is that this area could be the inside of a player-owned castle, so perhaps sort of an upgrade to the My Castle feature in Fire Emblem Fates, and I bet you can run around and talk to members of your army roaming the castle, which would be really, really cool. The fact that Edelgard is asking what to train seems a little bit like a base-like activity to get some, like, weapon level experience or something, which is definitely cool, and I could totally see them doing something like this. Once more, we're shown the Dragonwing Crown Woman, who's now holding a staff that looks kind of ruined or broken, which could be some sort of a legendary relic of the goddess. I don't really think that it looks like the sword though, so this could be something completely different. In the next shot, we can see soldiers moving about and changing formation, which looks to be a more attack-oriented formation, being shaped like a triangle with sort of the dagger tip facing the enemy, like a phalanx formation. So my assumption with this is we'll probably see a variety of formations ranging from things like defensive to take less damage, balanced for a more middle-of-the-road approach, and so on. But of course, as always, that remains to be seen. Perhaps formations will also affect the weapon triangle advantage, or provide another layer of advantage other than the weapon triangle, this time the formation triangle, so that could potentially provide like even more advantage or more disadvantage in battle too. At this point in the trailer, the soldiers then rush at the enemy, almost comically trampling them and sending them flying. I'm not entirely certain what this could be, perhaps a combat art or something? This female mage attacking an enemy with magic seems pretty standard here, but she's up on a raised hill, which makes me wonder if we'll see height advantage from Radiant Dawn making a comeback. Perhaps that's why this shot is in there, because otherwise it's just kind of random. This character here, just based upon his looks alone, seems like a mix of Rudolph and Garen, with a magical burning razor chain or chain link whip that's shown devastating like hundreds of soldiers, so it could potentially be an enemy general or commander, maybe alongside the rest of those fighters that we saw earlier. Next up, we've got this creepy thing here that looks kind of like a training dummy. It looks like they're practicing on it, but has a very interesting and distinct look to it. Now we get to see the new version of the crit animation, which seems to be a little bit more enhanced from, you know, Fire Emblem Fates and Fire Emblem Echoes, and I actually like it a lot. And lastly, the final thing that we get to see in this trailer is this young girl sleeping on an altar. She's incredibly reminiscent of Tiki, with the dragon symbol on the back of the throne as well, so perhaps she'll be the Manakete of this game. I wonder if they'll make her actually be Tiki or another incarnation of Naga, unless, of course, like I said before, this world is completely different, but this absolutely does seem like Fire Emblem Three Houses' version of Tiki. The voiceover line here,
I will return here someday, my teacher. Promise me that you won't forget me.
is very interesting. It sounds like it could be Edelgard, but it's probably not, as it sounds as if the character's worried about being forgotten, in which a lot of time would have to pass between now and then. So these characters must have extended lifespans, so it seems like it could be a reference to how characters like Tiki sleep for hundreds and thousands of years before being awoken. But it's definitely not this new Tiki character's voice though, as we can hear her make a tiny sound right at the end of the trailer, and it doesn't sound anything like this voice. So perhaps it was someone speaking to her from long ago. Overall though, I'm super excited for this game. It's definitely way different than I ever imagined Fire Emblem 16 would be like, but I'm really excited to see, any potential more news that we get over the next couple of months. I do honestly hope we get a bit more of a graphical upgrade though, because it does seem kind of like last gen graphics that I'm seeing so far. Hopefully that's just because it's a work in progress, or maybe it was captured lower definition or something, but I really do hope that the Switch doesn't hold it back from doing more impressive graphics, because honestly, we've seen debatably better graphics even in some of the Tales games up to this point, and this is a 2019 game that's going to be coming out, so I really do hope that we do see an improvement there, because it does seem kind of a little lackluster so far, but it does look nice overall. I will say that the styles of all the characters and everything in that department is looking great. I just hope that we have some more pretty visuals, some more detail, some more texture and stuff, so I'll be excited to see that if that happens. So that's going to wrap up this video. I hope that you guys really enjoyed this analysis and breakdown of the Fire Emblem Three Houses trailer. What do you guys think? Are you excited for this game? I sure am. If you want to see more content like this in the future, or stay up to date with the Fire Emblem Three Houses news, be sure to get subscribed to Lucky Crit today so you don't miss any of our new videos that come out. If you enjoyed this video, you can do me a solid by slashing the thumbs up down below. That really helps out the channel. And if you're interested in checking out our Discord server, we have a brand new chat channel just for Fire Emblem Three Houses. If you want to go there and speculate and discuss with other members, be sure to check it out. You can also follow us on Twitter for even faster news, updates, and information. And as always, a huge shout out to all of our amazing patrons who help make content like this possible and really help to support the channel and keep it going. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you really enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.